Lisa, let's make sure we're thorough this time, all right? We'll be away for 6 days on this trip. Okay, I've got plenty of time to clean thoroughly. Looks like I can get some good housework practice. I'll go for it, Lisa replied. She understood the importance of the task. I will make sure to clean thoroughly, she promised. Several days later, confusion struck. Hey, what's going on? We can't get into the house, exclaimed Lisa's husband. I figured as much. What does that mean? He asked, perplexed. What is this, Lisa? What did you do? Explain, where are you right now? What did you do while we were on vacation? He demanded answers. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lisa, a 30-year-old part-time housewife. I've been married to Henry, my husband, who's 4 years older, for just under a year. You could say we're still in our newlywed phase. I had envisioned a cozy life with just the two of us. That was the plan until we got married. After deciding to tie the knot, we purchased a house and started living together. Initially, everything was going smoothly. However, we encountered a significant problem. Honey, what's for dinner tonight? Henry inquired one evening. What did we have for dinner last night? Lisa replied. We had curry last night. Since it's summertime, something light would be nice today, Henry suggested. The problem? My in-laws started living with us without our consent. We never discussed living with my husband's parents. We bought the house with the intention of it being just for us. Yet, without a word to me, my in-laws decided to make themselves at home. Initially, they only came over on weekends, but it escalated. They brought their own furniture and started acting like it was their house. It would have been nice if my husband said something, but he didn't. He acted like a child in front of his parents with no opinions of his own. I'm worried. Mom, are you feeling the summer heat? Are you okay, Dad? Henry fretted. I didn't realize until after we got married, but my husband has always lived with his parents. I had only visited his parents' house once before the wedding, just to introduce ourselves, so I had no idea what his lifestyle was like. I had no inkling that he was such a mom's boy and a daddy's boy. Suddenly, living with his parents became stressful enough, but there was even more on top of that. Hey, Lisa, there's nothing I can eat for dinner today. Can you make something else? My husband asked. Isn't fish with boiled vegetables, greens, and soup okay? I suggested. I'm not in the mood for fish. I wanted meat today, he replied. My mother-in-law was acting like a princess as usual. She always found something to complain about, this or that. I don't have any meat right now, she announced. Oh, is that so? Let's order delivery then, I proposed. My mother-in-law then started ordering luxurious hors d'oeuvres, not the sort of thing one would usually order on a weekday. It's fine if she wants to splurge with her own money, but I began. Hello, I'll take one of those luxurious hors d'oeuvres. Yes, you can charge it to the usual card, my mother-in-law interrupted, revealing that she had registered my card without my permission. At first, I was shocked and asked why she would do such a thing. Because everyone will eat. I order, right? It's everyone's food expense, so it's normal for you to pay, right? She explained, brandishing her own theory. Sure enough, if my mother-in-law orders too much food, everyone has no choice but to eat it. I reluctantly eat as well, but why should it be taken for granted that I bear the entire burden? I can't seem to fathom my mother-in-law's thought process, and my father-in-law is quite a character too. As a wife supporting a family of 4, I feel compelled to prepare both meat and fish dishes. Everyone might have different preferences, right? This is exactly why modern women are often so frustrated. Oh boy, you're the biggest oh boy here, I muttered to myself, exasperated. Of course, my father-in-law doesn't reprimand my mother-in-law for her whims. On the contrary, he seems to concur with her and blames me, projecting his stereotypical views onto me. They are indeed 2 peas in a pod. I suppose they believe that modern people just can't handle even the simplest tasks. It's a real problem. Good thing we have delivery, my father-in-law remarked. That's right. There's such a variety of delivery these days. I'd rather have delivery every day than Lisa's home cooking, my mother-in-law added with a chuckle. My in-laws seem to take pleasure in poking fun at me, even though I'm the one covering their food, living expenses, and even the mortgage for this house. Why should I be the butt of their jokes? Anger bubbled up inside me. As my in-laws continued to make themselves at home, I began to feel that being at work was a preferable option. Fortunately, my work was going well, and there was talk of a promotion. When I was asked if I wanted to be a project leader, I accepted without hesitation. I figured that if I kept myself busy, the stress from home would lessen. The days when I couldn't prepare meals increased, and if my in-laws ordered delivery, it couldn't be helped. At this point, I prioritized getting away from my in-laws. As a result, my overtime and weekend work increased, but I felt a sense of fulfillment. Just when I thought I could somehow manage, something unexpected happened on a Friday night. I came home after working overtime, and the house was completely dark. It was odd that my husband and in-laws weren't there. It was too early for them to be asleep. As I entered, wondering what was going on, I found a piece of paper on the table. It read, "We're going on a trip. We'll be back on Sunday." What I hadn't expected to encounter, perhaps even more than anger, was the sight that greeted me when I stepped into the room. It was cluttered with delivery containers and empty drink bottles. It was typical for my in-laws and husband not to do housework or tidy up, but they could have at least disposed of the trash before leaving. Frustration surged within me, and despite raising my voice, there was no one there to hear me. Feeling hollow, I took it upon myself to clean up the mess. As I sighed and filled bags with trash, a sudden thought crossed my mind. Where did they get the money for this trip? A chill ran down my spine. Opening the banking app on my phone, I checked the credit card activity. The sight before me was staggering. A few $1,000s charged from a company that appeared to be a travel agency. In a panic, I tried calling my husband, but there was no answer. Suppressing the urge to hurl the phone in frustration, I resorted to checking his social media accounts. And there it was, a picturesque beach scene captioned, "Beautiful beach. It's so pretty." The people in the photo didn't look American. Could it be? Further investigation revealed they were indeed in Bali. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I had never imagined they would go on an international trip without informing me. Drained and overwhelmed, I couldn't help but acknowledge that my husband's income hardly covered such extravagances. The main source of income was my salary, and I had been diligently saving as much as possible. I was consumed with worry about the future, but that all changed when my in-laws arrived. The mere thought of my husband and his parents using my hard-earned money to enjoy themselves at a resort ignited an uncontrollable fury within me. All the vague stress I had been feeling began to coalesce into clear, coherent thoughts. Why? How? What were they thinking? And until when? The endless contemplation of the future spurred me into action. When my husband and in-laws returned from their trip, slightly tanned, I found myself immensely irritated. However, I chose to keep my feelings to myself. We had such a good time. Going abroad is definitely worth it, and the cost for food and accommodation was so cheap, my in-laws exclaimed. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to question who they thought was footing the bill for their escapades. As my husband engaged in conversation with his parents, his immaturity shone through. Begging for a summer vacation trip at the age of 35, he seemed like a child. Witnessing this behavior, a wave of disgust towards him surged within me. Attempting to regain my composure, I focused on preparing dinner. As frustration simmered beneath the surface, I mechanically moved my hands. Then my mother-in-law's remark cut through the air like a knife. "Oh my, there's so much dust here," she commented, running her fingers over the leaves of a houseplant. "That's not good," muttered my father-in-law, casting me a fleeting glance. "I didn't take Lisa because she had housework to do, and you didn't clean. What kind of day off was that?" My husband took the opportunity to criticize me. Unable to hold back, I asked again, "Because if you had done your housework properly all the time, I would have taken you on the trip. I didn't invite you because I was thinking about you with all your housework. Aren't we all, me, Dad, and Mom, considerate?" My husband said this with a straight face. Thanks for your thoughtfulness, I replied, suppressing my anger. My face twitched, and I turned my back, pretending to take ingredients from the refrigerator. Are you out of your mind? I shouted inwardly. I couldn't believe it. Leaving the house messy, taking a vacation with my money, and then coming back to say that. The amount of money spent on the credit card, which I checked while my husband and in-laws were traveling, made me even angrier. Did they go to a spa or a really nice restaurant? Even for Bali, where the cost for food and stay is relatively low, large payments were constantly added. How much have they spent without my consent so far? I couldn't help but think about it. 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, I calculated in my head. Yeah, a couple $1,000s isn't impossible. And considering that they've taken over this entire house, I could estimate even higher. I was totally fed up. Once they got a taste of traveling with my money, my husband and in-laws started going on trips more frequently. My card was being used as a matter of course, but I didn't interfere. For several months, I silently observed the foolish acts of my husband and in-laws. Then one day, my mother-in-law said, "We're going to Hawaii. Could you please increase the credit card limit?" "Sure, I understand," I answered. My mother-in-law was completely looking down on me. Did she think I'm some soldier who does whatever she says? Shouldn't have I a new swimsuit? In her ridiculous age, she's flipping through a swimsuit brochure, looking excited. Well, she's going to use my money anyway. Just you wait, I cleared it. My cheerful mother-in-law was so engrossed in the brochure she didn't even notice the day my husband and in-laws left for Hawaii. The room was the messiest it had ever been. My husband and in-laws were apparently heading to the airport soon, and they were busily checking their luggage. As usual, they seemed to have no intention of cleaning up the room. "Oh, Lisa, make sure you do it right this time," my mother-in-law told me. "It's a long trip this time, 6 days. Plenty of time to practice your house chores." "Good luck, Lisa," my father-in-law added cluelessly. What is he talking about? Seeing it was about time, all three of them started to rush. They're chatting and leaving, looking genuinely excited. "Understood, I'll make sure to clean thoroughly," I said, though they probably didn't hear me due to their chatter. 6 days later, the day my husband and in-laws were to return home, I was gazing at the night view. Even though it was a weekday, I had taken a rare paid day off and was enjoying a drink in a lavish hotel. My husband calls. I let out a sigh, leave my seat, and answer the call. "Hello? What the hell is going on?" "I can't get into the house." My husband sounds quite panicked. "I thought as much," I said calmly. "What do you mean? What's happening?" My husband asked frantically. "It's not surprising you're freaking out. After all, the house is vacant. There should be a for sale sign at the entrance, and not a single piece of furniture should be visible from the windows," I remarked. "Lisa, what have you done?" my husband demanded, his voice rising. "Where are you? What did you do while we were away?" I could hear my mother-in-law and father-in-law yelling in the background. "I cleaned up just as ordered," I answered nonchalantly. "Well, as all three of you were left stunned," I decided to explain. "I went ahead and put the house up for sale, the land too. It's completely clean now, nothing's left inside." "You foolish woman," my father-in-law yelled. "What foolish thing have I done? Who's been doing foolish things, I wonder?" "You all sure had a great time using your daughter and money and living it up," I retorted. "Lisa, don't be mean. Quickly change it back. What are we supposed to do? You'll also be in trouble without a place to live, right?" my husband pleaded, his voice almost teary. "I won't have a problem. The house was bought by me in the first place, and all I did was sell it. I've decided on my new place to live. Yes, the house was purchased with my considerable income. Of course, it's under my name. It was a house to which my husband had no rights," I explained firmly. "How could you? It was our home. How could you sell it without permission?" my mother-in-law exclaimed. "Please save your sleep talking for when you're asleep. It was never your home to begin with. You were just freeloading, right? Parasiting off me, right?" I countered sharply. "I've made up my mind. I can't continue like this, losing everything. I need to exterminate and rid myself of these harmful pests," I declared. How dare you speak to Mom like that? My husband's words were met with my swift retort. You're the pest too. I want a divorce. I'm going to demand my money back, which you've recklessly spent. I've already consulted with my attorney. The amount is... Before I could relay the amount, I heard a loud clatter on the other end. It seemed that my husband, in shock, had dropped the phone. What happened, Henry? What's wrong? The voices of my mother-in-law and father-in-law echoed clearly, worried for their son. Oh, Dad. My husband started crying like a child through the phone. I could only pull back in disbelief. Knowing that any further conversation would be futile, I hung up the phone and sat back down, sighing. It had become second nature to me, but today it was different. It was a sigh of relief. At last, I had finally cleaned house. Good job, I toasted to myself, sipping champagne. My husband and in-laws seemed to have no choice but to return to their family home. Well, they had nowhere else to go, after all. During the months from my decision to divorce until I actually brought it up, I found out that their home had turned into a hoarder's paradise. When I visited to introduce myself before marriage, the place didn't seem so disheveled. They must have hired professionals to temporarily tidy it up. Their house had a long-standing reputation in the neighborhood as a hoarder's home. Perhaps a messy house suited my messy husband and in-laws more than a clean one. Though my husband was reluctant about the divorce, he quickly accepted when confronted with my attorney, sobbing as he signed the agreement to pay me back the money they spent. It's not an amount he could easily afford with his salary, but it's only fair since he was the one who created the situation, recklessly indulging in luxuries with other people's money. And so I managed to completely sever ties with my troublesome family. However, I must regret the fact that I married such a man in the first place. Before we got married, I somehow managed to spin his troublesome traits in a positive light, finding him charming and laid back despite his flaws. Maybe I was too desperate as I approached my 30s. While occasionally venting about this to my colleagues, I go about my daily work. Will I be single forever from now on? I ponder aloud. You're still young. Don't say things like that. My colleagues play along with my complaints and jokes. You're right. I shouldn't give up hope. I concede. Would you consider someone younger? One of my subordinates asks. Was that a joke? Looking up, I see that their face is serious. Don't hoard unnecessary things. Cleaning is important, but maybe, just maybe, I don't need to give up hope, I realize. These days, I find myself pondering such things.